Hi everyone. So today we're going to be talking about the three common mistakes um, that change leaders make when implementing a change. And we all know that when changes happen, no matter how professional you are, no matter how long you've done this, sometimes you do not, or you take for granted because you're used to working with some technology leaders or application owners or people that have been in their crafts in their position for a very long time. You think you just take it for granted. Oh yeah, we meet at we meet at lunch, we chat, so this shouldn't be any issue. But when it comes to work and when it comes to change, um there are certain things that if you need to, you might need you might be required to write it as a vision board for yourself when you're in every time you come into your on your desk to clearly see that when there's need for change, when this change is about to happen, I cannot but ensure that this is something that I do. And these are the three main things that we're going to be addressing today. The first one is underestimating the need for clear, consistent communication. Because change efforts are frequently you would think that they are useful. You would think that I'm bringing you something good, I'm bringing you something great. Why give me so much issues? But the truth is, when you're making changes, you want to be sure that your communication is clear. So you want to tell them the benefits. You want to tell them why this thing is a benefit to them. Do not take for granted that they are technical leaders and so already know the benefits of these things from a security perspective, from a global data governance perspective. No, you have to be clear. You have to speak the benefits of the change in very clear terms, in very layman terms, because this is not their area of specialization, right? And even if it is, it's not something they're thinking about. They're thinking about their project, they're thinking about, and these are adults. So you want to take into consideration adults, that these are adult learners, because you might include things like, oh, if you want to know more about this, click on this link, and it takes them to a document where they have to read. For me, if you ask me to click on a link, we all know that if you want to get someone, if you purchase a tool, if you purchase an appliance, if you purchase your bed frame, for instance, and the instructions are very clearly spelled out in the manual, most of us do not go into. I'm guilty of that. Most of us do not go into the manual to go read what's going on, what the manufacturer says. We just go right ahead and start trying to figure it out and where the notes go by ourselves. We all do that. We're all guilty of that. So why do we think differently when it comes to change leaders? They are busy people. They are going up through their own things, and you're bringing up change that's going to impact their work. So you want to be sure that you try as you minimize the need for them to go to another document. I know you've done a lot of work in that document and it's very clear and it's very straight to the point. If only they would just go to that document. But I promise you that in my experience, these are people that have been on the same role for 15 years, 30 years plus, and trust me, you would expect them to just be able to figure this out. But they'll be like, if I don't have to do this change, I'm not going to be a part of it. Why? And then you drill down and find out it's because it's simple information that would have been something they would happily have jumped at as a reason for doing this change, for going through this change with you. They you could have just put it in the mail. Just say why in your awareness communication, in your follow-up communication. You want to be able to tell them, this is why this change is coming up. You want to be as clear and consistent as possible. If you say that you're going to send information on Tuesday at 3 p.m., please, at the most 10 minutes. At the most 10 minutes late. You don't want to be later than that in sending the communication. If you say you're going to get back to them at a particular time, please be consistent in doing that. If you say that you're going to send them a breakdown of success stories or whatever. If you promise something, please deliver it. You also want to set up a cadence of communication in terms of, do you want to be sending them, do you want to give them 7 days notice? Be consistent with that. If you want to give them 2 weeks notice, be consistent with that. No matter how pressing or urgent that change is, you want to be ensured that you are consistent in the way that you're communicating with your leaders. You know, now, how do you avoid these things? You want to avoid it by developing a plan, a communication plan. I know it might be extra work, but this is where everybody needs to work together. You want to work with your communications team, your communications person, but if you are the one that's communications plus experience, the experience, technical experts and all that, if it's one person, I got you, I know what you mean, I've been there. And I'll tell you, your communication plan does not have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be ambiguous. Just stick to what you need to say. Stick to what they need to know. Stick to what is immediately beneficial to them. And please let there be a cadence so that anybody that goes through it understands what it's about. Give yourself highlights of what your messaging is going to be about. So that if you're sharing it with the leaders of this maybe you have several departments, so if you're sharing it with them, you want to be able to communicate to them you want them to be able to see that this plan, while not too detailed, because when it's too detailed it could discourage people from reading what they need to know or getting to where they need to know. Highlight the points that are important. You want them to be able to see that this is something I can use. This change that's coming, it has taken into consideration the necessary things that users want to know. Now, one way of avoiding this is stating your why and how. You're already saying what the change is. You're already saying what the benefit is. But you want to say why it benefits them as a user, not why it benefits the organization. You want to say why it benefits them as an individual. You want to anticipate the risks to them. You want to anticipate their issues. People can have issues that you can't even imagine. You want to open up an opportunity for them. If you have questions or you have further questions for this, can you type it in here? Or you even create a template to say, these are the things that, this is where you can put in your questions. We've provided a template as a guide for you to write your questions in, so that you know exactly how to channel the kind of questions. If you're evaluating or analyzing the kinds of surveys and feedback that you're receiving, you want to be able to create a template that allows you to quickly do that and get your ROI in terms of reporting and things like that. Now, secondly, we're going to look at another second mistake that people make, and that second mistake is our last point is leading to that, when you're neglecting as a change leader, you're neglecting the needs and of your users. Engage them. Create a Teams channel, create a Google page, create a what's this software, what's this application you have? You create create opportunities, create platforms, create a group chat, a Slack page, anything to engage your leader, your users. You want them to be able to give you feedback every time. You might want to create a template for them to put in their feedback. Just simple thing, a table. They click into this Google page, they enter their name. Your users, you put their name, so it's easy for them to they don't have to type them. You want to reduce the stress they will have to go through to do these things for them, to give you feedback, right? But at the same time, you want to make sure that they give you useful feedback. But most importantly, please never ever not read the feedback. Make it a point of duty. There are applications that give you ideas on how to, that give you opportunity to get alerts when those feedback come. Please, by all means, take advantage of them so that you get alerts when new feedback is received. You can decide to, okay, I'll time myself, give yourself every 5 hours or every 2 hours, depending on the frequency or the urgency of the change. If it's something that's very integral and could affect people, impact the work of people's work, they would definitely be sending you a lot of user feedback. So you want to engage with them. You want to send them a response. Thank you very much for your message. We'll get back to you. Thank you very much for stating this. We are fixing it. And you want to show them that you're fixing it. You're working on it. You're not just waiting till the whole survey period is over. You're reporting this back to the IT groups. You're reporting this back to the professionals, and you're ensuring that they are able to fix this thing, show you progress, track the progress that is going on, that these changes are being taken into consideration and acted upon, and communicate that progress. Find ways such as you have meeting minutes. You want to share meeting minutes, not too sensitive. If they're confidential information, you want to take that out. But you want to be able to show meeting minutes that show that these changes are being already implemented, are already being taken care of at the technology level. You want to make sure that they understand that their changes are being implemented. Then you want to give them feedback. Can you go try this back? Engage them. Let them feel part of the process. That's how you get buy-in. That's how you get buy-in. How do you avoid this? You start early. Because most of these things I'm saying are things that if you don't start early, you will not be able to, you won't have the patience. Your users won't even have the bandwidth to listen or engage with you, because you're bringing something down their truth. You're shoving something down their throat that you're already going to implement in a few days. So you want to give them sufficient notice. It also ties back to our first point, which is making sure your communication is consistent. If you're giving them 7 days, make sure that 7 days takes into consideration the required time for survey, for feedback, and for feedback, for follow-up feedback back and forth. You want to make sure that the number of days you're providing or you're giving for that level of change is taken into consideration when you're determining how long between when you notify them and when there's change. For instance, when they're going to be converted or when the change takes effect. You want to communicate, you want to be clear, and you want to be clear and concise about what this change is about. But not just that, you want to be able to tell them, you want to be able to give them enough time. Please give them enough time. That's one thing that you can do to avoid not being able to engage them and provide them feedback. If you want to start it, if you want to do something, you want to give them enough training time to feel confident that they can handle issues. You want to be able to talk to help desk, involve help desk, so they feel confident that their analysts are able to field questions. You want to be able to provide knowledge-based articles so that the support desk analysts, 1 or 2, even if, are able to respond and field these questions so that they understand, feel confident to field these questions when they come in a very technical and solvable way. You want to create a cadence of escalation, such as, so if at this level we receive feedback or we receive something at the help desk and we are not able to resolve it, at what point do we escalate, and who do we escalate to? If it doesn't get resolved at this point, what's the next point of escalation? You want to give people this kinds of opportunity. But if you don't have time, if you didn't give yourself enough time, no matter how urgent this changes, you need to be able, that's how you're a professional. That's how you're identified as a professional. When your experience tells you that this isn't sufficient time and you want to be able to establish a relationship, a trust relationship with your stakeholders by being consistent in the way that you communicate with them and in the way you engage with them and in the way you respond and to their feedback and follow up with on their feedback. So you'll be able to say, when higher ups come and say, this is urgent, this change is urgent, we need to do it now. Your role is to be a stopgap and find a point of compromise to say, okay, how about we do it here, because we still need to give these people time to implement these changes, to get feedback and all those kinds of things. That's your role. Now, if they go ahead and still implement these things without following due process, but you've said your piece, and going forward, you'll be established as a professional because you gave warning because something will go wrong. And when these things go wrong, such as users are opting out, users are complaining, there's a lot of issues coming up. There's so many calls coming into the help desk or the front office that people can't, even the front desk or the help desk teams can't handle it anymore. Those kinds of things are very grave issues, and because you've spoken up initially, people will come back to you to say, okay, can you help us now? So that's how you establish yourself as a professional in those kinds of things. You provide loops for feedback. Now, the last but not the least mistake that people make, change management leaders make when implementing change is failing to embed change into organizational culture and process. Oh my God, this drives me nuts. When you come with a change and you're trying to create new processes for an organization, no matter how old or analog the existing processes are, you want to make sure that these new changes you're making fit into the existing processes and the organizational structure. The reporting process and escalation processes from help desk must fit into the help desk, normal organizational help desk structure. You cannot implement a change that the escalation path is different just because the technology is different. No, it means there's an issue with the hiring process in the first place. There's an issue. It means there's an underlying issue, a fundamental issue that needs to be addressed. You cannot implement a change again that does not fall into line with the existing process. No matter how new and novel this is, no matter how this might replace the existing structure, you must be able to set up this thing within the existing process, or else it's guaranteed to fail because it will not be sustainable. You need people to be able to carry this thing until it's easily working on its own, because you don't need to bring a change that you need additional people to implement. If you're bringing on additional people, it should be because they have skills that nobody else in the organization has, and skills that will lead to measurable growth in the overall organization. You cannot bring new processes and new systems because you want to implement this fab artificial intelligence or machine learning tool. It has to, who manages it? What's the escalation path? What was the before? How was it managed before? How was this process managed? So if you're automating something, how was this process managed? You want to train those people that were manually managing it to manage the automation process, because you as the automation manager, your role is not to operationalize it. Your role is to automate it, create your codes, write your programs, do all that you need to do, and they can report to you if something goes wrong in, say, timing or reporting or anything like that. You need to define those things as a change manager, but you cannot be responsible as an automation manager for operationalizing a process that is now automated. That's not your role. There needs to be a team that already exists that was managing that system. Now, if it's a new system, like say you're migrating an application from on-prem to cloud, and there's nobody equipped or there's nobody that was doing this for the cloud process, please use the on-prem team. Use the on-prem team and train them. Or if they need to hire somebody else, then you need to discuss that within the team. But make sure that there's an existing process that is leveraging existing systems. Now, you can develop a process of transition where it would, everybody would be able to hands off, especially if it's an automated process. but it must fit within the organization as it is. If it doesn't, then you need to tweak something. If it's a vendor managed tool, you want to be able to work with the vendor and include in the SLA that the vendor would be responsible for managing and operationalizing that until in-house people or a consultant has been trained. I know this goes into your HR and hiring process in terms of how you manage, how you hire people, the kinds of skills that you're looking at. But if you have, say, if it, I know things are changing really fast now. So having a 5-year goal or a 5-year objective is very, just very 2006. But you need to be able to, you need to be able to make plans ahead. You need to be able to make sure your goals are things that are realistic, but also things that as things are changing, it's easy to, what you're changing is the how, not the destination, right? Now, these are, how do you enforce, how do you avoid this kind of issues? I got so carried away talking about that because that's something I've experienced quite a lot. People trying to create new systems, or if they find out that this new change, this new automation, or this new improvement does not fit into existing organizational system, they just create a new separate thing, a strange thing, or they just abandon the project altogether. And then you spent months or years of finances and human resources and time just down the drain because you created a system that you did not fully document and expected it to work on its own. Now, how do you avoid this pitfall? You reinforce new behaviors through incentives, through recognition and ongoing training, and include the change in performance metrics, role descriptions and promotion pathways. I've already mentioned this, in all the things I said before. So those are things that you want to do. You want to make sure that people are able to understand what their new roles are. If you need to upgrade somebody's, roles and responsibilities, job description, please go ahead and do it. But please also provide training. Let them know how you're going to train them. Let them know how you're going to make this easy for them. That's one thing people would always object to when new changes come. I've seen people resign because they're just tired, not of the change. See, people don't acclimatize to change because most people don't communicate change properly, do not implement change properly. But people like new things. People like to experiment with new things. But if you don't tell them how they are going to implement this thing, it could feel like a threat. And that's how I'll come to the end of my video today, to say that if you are experiencing change anywhere, rather than kick against it, maybe take some of these my tips and suggest to your change leader, or if you're a change leader, take some of these my tips and implement as an organizational culture, because some of these things are not possible to start during the project to implement. It's something you have to have built up as a culture across the organization before this happened, before the project and before implementation. You don't have 2 weeks, 3 months will not be sufficient to bring in these kinds of, some of these things like the organizational change, or if you're going to change someone's job description, if you already your organization did not already have a culture of adaptability and where the staff or employees feel like they are being carried along, it'll be very difficult for you to implement a change or change their job description. I've seen people resign for things like this, and those are things that we don't want in our lives. So with these few points of mine, I hope I've been able to convince you and not confuse you that change is coming, change is important, change is fun, but change can be done, but there's a right way to do change. Stay tuned for our project radio change webinar coming up on Friday, starting Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be holding, and I'm hoping to see all of you there. The link is in my bio on Instagram. I'm going to put a link to my bio on Instagram, to my Instagram page, to here, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you. Please like, subscribe, share, and we're going to be dropping more of this as much as we can. Thank you so much.